بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Inshallah, this series is going to discuss lots of recent finances, especially in the West, and what is the position of Islam from these transactions that we are dealing with, especially with the interest system being enrooted, not just in these countries, but all over the world. So how can we make sure that our transactions are halal and we are not crossing the boundaries of haram, especially when we speak about interest, because Allah in the Quran did not raise war on any sin except the interest. So we will start inshallah, and every week we will have a group of topics that we will be discussing inshallah from an Islamic perspective. And I'm going to advertise, when I advertise I will say this week we are going to discuss these topics inshallah every week. So we will start with some introductions and then we go into the main topic. So first we want to define the Islamic economic system. What is the Islamic economic system? It is a group of bases, systems and rules that are extracted from the Islamic Sharia and related to the different levels of the economic activities and at individual and company levels. What does that mean? So we have rules, we have systems, we have qawa'id, bases, and we need to follow these, and these are extracted from the Islamic Sharia. So meaning that all the rules that we need to speak about in regards to an Islamic finance needs to be based on an evidence from the Sharia and related to the different levels of economic activities. We have several levels of economic activities. We have economic activities at individual levels. So we are going to the shopping, we are buying, we are selling. Can we buy? Can we pay by this card or that card? Is it permissible to have credit account or check account or saving account? All of these are questions. And company levels, because at the company levels we are speaking about broader things and more regulations that require actually fatwa for such transactions. So we are going to speak about what we call in Arabic mal. Mal, lots of people refer to mal as the notes, the money, which is wrong. From a fiqh perspective, the word mal, that's why I did not put money in the definition. Why? Because mal or wealth is defined as everything that can be possessed, meaning that you can own. So, is a laptop a mal? It is. Is a camera a mal? It is. Is a chair a mal? It is. Is a house a mal? It is. Is a car a mal? It is. Is a farm a mal? It is. Is sheep and cows a mal? It is. So something that you can possess, can own, and benefited from. So you can benefit from that. Benefit, and we are going to speak about the different types of benefits that we can get, whether it's personal benefits like my car is driving me home, I'm going to work, compared to, for example, I'm buying and selling stuff. I am having some crops in my farm. So I'm benefiting from all of these, whether it's individual or income benefit. Whether it's in kind, such as gold, silver, plants, animals, and others. So I might benefit from the gold by wearing it. Or I might benefit from gold, of course, not for the men, for the women. But we might benefit from the gold by buying and selling. So this is mal, this is wealth. Silver, plants. Okay, so with this, if we have gold or silver that we cannot benefit from, this is considered wealth that I need to look after in regards to zakat and other stuff? No, because I cannot benefit from. Okay? If I have, and this comes here, benefited from, this comes here with a question to, for example, the superannuation. Lots of questions come here about superannuation. For example, do I need to pay zakat on my superannuation? The question is it landing under the definition of wealth? Can be possessed? Yes, it can. And benefited from? At the moment? No, I can't benefit from. So that's why the scholars spoke in regards to the superannuation. You don't need to pay zakat on your superannuation because it does not land under the category of wealth that you are owning. Plants. Some plants you can own, but whether you can benefit from or you cannot, like the normal plants or the normal trees, you might not be able to benefit from. Animals and others, or a benefit such as housing a rented house. So, something like benefit, house, and a rented house. So these are benefits as well. So house you are buying to live in, house you are buying to renting it out. So these are as well wealth. Or as an offer to complete trade. So it's like you are buying and selling. So that trade, that objects that you are buying and selling are considered wealth. Or a right such as the right of custody, believe it or not. Of course, when there is a custody right, there is wealth with the custody in order to spend, and that's when the kid, for example, is inheriting some money, or nowadays, for example, if the foster care with the custody, there's a wealth coming, and that's owned, and you can benefit from, and it's money, and so it's a wealth that needs to be looked after. As for what a person does not possess, it is not called money or wealth, like a bird in the air or a fish in the water. That's not wealth. That's not money. So that's not wealth that we are going to speak about.
What about kids? Like, I mean, we don't possess them. Our kids.
Exactly. You don't possess them. So they are not considered a wealth. Although you can benefit from, but the condition is possessed. So we cannot own them. They are not our ownership. They are free human beings. Okay? So at the end of the day, you are not going to pay zakat on your son. It's, yeah. All right, so that...
One more question, sorry. With the superannuation, once we get, like, after 75 years, once we get the superannuation, then we have to pay zakat.
Yes, but you don't need to pay zakat for the whole... As soon as you get your superannuation, there you start. Okay? All right, that's a definition of mal or wealth. We will speak a little bit about the intention in the financial transactions. We know that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Verily, that deeds are by actions, and for each person is whatever he intended to do. So in Islam, the reward can be based on two conditions and everything. First, that the act that we do is according to the Sharia. Second, that the intention is correct. So even with the financial transactions, when you go buy from the shop, that transaction can be a ibadah where you can be rewarded for if it has the right intention and if it is according to the Sharia. No reward except if intentions are for Allah Azza wa Jal. You might be buying a house. If the intention was not true, correct, then you cannot take reward. You will get the house. That's why we as Muslims, everything around us is covered by our intentions. So everything we do, we have to have the intentions. All the way from going to bike riding, to going to fun or picnic or swimming or anything, to our salah, to our zakat, to our siyam. All of these, when they're covered by intentions, then we get reward from Allah Azza wa Jal for, and the transactions as well, the financial transactions. True intention prevents the deviation from the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. When the person you are dealing with financially has a good intention with what they are doing, then that's preventing the people from deviating from the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. If the person is like when the Prophet ﷺ said in the Hadith Qudusi from Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah Azza wa Jal said in that hadith, أنا ثالث الشريكين ما لم يخن أحدهما الآخر. I'm the third partner of two partners, unless one of the two partners betrayed the other. So Allah Azza wa Jal will be with the two partners who are opening a business, a company, anything to benefit from. As soon as one of them has a deviation of intention, then Allah Azza wa Jal will leave them and everything will collapse. And we have seen in our lives lots of cases, unfortunately, with people coming into partnership, establishing some work or companies, but everything just collapsed. Why? Maybe one of them, the intention was not correct. So the intention is essential to prevent the deviation from the truth path. Wrong intentions are reasons for wrong transactions and cheating. So if the person's intention is to earn money only, then that's wrong. So what would be an intention for someone who is selling? Is it making money, or there is other intention should be in the financial transaction? Imagine that you are selling products. What would be the intentions for that selling?
I think intention would be make money, but to I don't know, maybe to make it the correct intention.
So the intention is making money. The intention should not be making money, full stop. Should not be at all making money, full stop.
Making profits and then benefiting from it, or benefiting your family, or giving charity.
Something in that context can be like, I want to make some money because I want to benefit my family, benefit the others as well. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, the best sadaqah is a sadaqah that you give to your family, and then as well I have extra money that I do sadaqah here, sadaqah there, contribute here, help and support. And at the same time, when you are selling something, you must have that intention with that transaction that you want to benefit the one who is buying from you. If you are selling something beneficial, you are selling food, you are selling anything, you must have that intention of benefiting people. So the right intention is recommended or required for any transaction, and the wrong intentions are reasons for wrong transactions and cheating. We have lots of cheating, unfortunately, in our life, and people cheat a lot because their intention is wrong. Like someone gives a gift to his wife or brother before the due date of zakat, then receives it back after the due date. Of course, this is forbidden and cheating. Someone has the threshold of paying zakat. So during the whole year, he has $100,000 in his account. Now, before the threshold, before the hawl, which is the year, comes into existence, because in Ramadan, his financial year finishes. So in Ramadan, he needs to see how much money he has in his account, and then he is going to count zakat on that. So one day before or a week before, he comes to his brother and say, I'm gifting you $99,000. And he put him in his brother's account. So if you look at his account now, his account is empty. So he cannot pay, he should not pay zakat. A week or two after, then the brother will come and say, I'm gifting you back 99,000. From like in the system, the Islamic system, if we have an Islamic system, in the Islamic system, the country will have a person who will go and check on the accounts, check on the wealth of each person, identify, calculate, and say, this is what is required from you to pay zakat. But that doesn't exist anywhere anymore. But this is how it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Khulafa al-Rashidin. They used to have people dedicated for zakat to go to all those who have wealth, sit down with them, look at everything they have, and then count. And the Prophet ﷺ used to send specific people who know about calculating zakat. So if that person, for example, if we are in a state where that person is living in an Islamic country, and the Islamic country sends the people to collect zakah, and came to him, and they checked his account, and his account was zero, and then they don't have any right to collect the zakah from that person. So apparently, he is not liable for paying zakah. But that's because of the wrong intention of that person. That's why I was speaking about intentions. So, he will not pay zakah, but he will be liable in front of Allah Azza wa Jal for cheating, and this is forbidden in Islam. When Allah prohibited on the people of Israel the fat, as in Surah Al-An'am, Allah Azza wa Jal prohibited the fat on the people of Israel. What did they do? They sold it, and they used the money. They sold the fat from the animals and sold them and used the money. Well, when Allah Azza wa Jal prohibits something, He prohibits everything about that thing. So He cannot sell it and use the money for it. So that's cheating. When Allah prohibited the fishing on Saturday for the people of Ayla, and we know the story in Surah Al-A'raf, Allah prohibited on them to do fishing on Saturdays because it's the holiday for them, or the holy weekday. And so what did they used to do? The fish used to come on Saturday for them in the shoreline, and they will not be able to catch it because on Saturday it's haram for them to catch fish. So what did they do? They dug some trenches to their houses. So on Saturday, when the fish comes, they will go all the way to their houses, and they will be around, and they will just put a block on Saturday. So the fish cannot go back to the sea. And in another narration that they use when the fish come, they used to tie it with a rope. Some will tie fish to the rope, some will block it in some trenches, and then they will come next day because they are able to catch fish on Sunday. They will come on Sunday and they will collect the fish. And that's cheating. And Allah Azza wa Jal turned them apes and pigs because of that act, because it's cheating. And that's the bad intention. So in transactions, in finances, intentions are important, and they are requirements for accepting these transactions by Allah. Muslims have the true intentions that everything should be to Allah, and we always think about things not for our personal benefits. Although we are living in a materialistic world and everyone looks only about material and how to benefit from that, but our intentions are different. That's why we saw some good examples from the companions. When one of the people came to the market and came to one companion to buy from him something, he said to him, "No, don't buy from me. My brother next to me, he's selling the same stuff. He did not sell this morning anything. I already sold. Go buy from him." That spirit of finances, because the person is not connected to these materials, to the wealth, to the money. That is the good intention of wealth, and that's how Allah Azza wa Jalla will put barakah in all the community if the community are dealing with each other with that manner. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On the day when wealth and children will not benefit except whoever come to Allah with a healthy heart, with a good intention, away from cheating. The scholars interpreted the word healthy heart as good intention. So everything he is doing is with good intention. He has no wrong intention in anything he is doing, even the financial transactions. All the financial transactions, even though they depend on apparent dealing, it is related to the intention and not cheating and betraying. So all of these financial transactions need to be clear. That's why we saw the examples of our all people before us, the righteous people, they used to be very careful when they are doing financial transactions. They used to be meticulous, precise. If they are selling something and it has a ding in it or any defect in it, he will be just showing exactly what it is, and if it's not happening, he will be donating his whole money if this is happening. Like we knew about a story of Abu Hanifa, that he used to have a defected cloth and he put it aside because it has a defect, and he came back and he found that his worker actually sold it. So he said to him, "Did you show the customer the defect in that?" He said, "No." So he took all the money that he earned from that day and just donated out, because he doesn't have the right in that money, because one of these was defected. And so it is how they used to be very sensitive with finances, and we need to be. Islamic economy and financial transaction rotate around the right intention. So when we have the right intention, the economy for the Islamic community is going to be flourish. We say the wealth is for Allah Azza wa Jal. That's why we spend it for the right cause. And this statement, Al-malu malullah, wal-iyalu iyalullah. The wealth is for Allah, and the people are for Allah. So if that is the case, then we are not going to have except the right intention with our financial transactions, with our acts and everything. And Allah said in the Quran, for the people that are from the people of Jannah in this dunya, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We are feeding you for the sake of Allah. So we are donating for the sake of Allah. That's why one of the knowledgeable people, when he used to donate, he came to one person who needed money, and he said, "Take, not for you." And that person was as well knowledgeable in Allah Azza wa Jal. So he said to him, "I accept, not from you." Both of them understand the transaction. This is a financial transaction. He donated, but in his heart, the intention is for Allah Azza wa Jal. So he's not seeing the person who is giving the money. He's seeing Allah Azza wa Jal in that transaction. And on the other side, the person who is taking the money, he's taking the money from Allah, not from the person. So he said to him, "I accept it, not from you. I know it's coming from Allah Azza wa Jal." So this is about the intention. And there is a big importance of wealth and economy in the life of the Muslims. Allah Azza wa Jal said, "Do not entrust the incapable among your dependents with your wealth, which Allah has made a means of support for you. التي جعلها الله لكم قياما." qiyamah, support of you. So Allah Azza wa Jal made that wealth support for us, and He told us in Surah An-Nisa that this is for your support. So meaning that Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us you need to be careful and look after that. You cannot give it to someone who's going to cheat or who's going to just take it and not return it, and who's going to just get rid of it, and even if he is incapable, you cannot give it to him. Whatever the thing can stand with. So, meaning that الذي جعل الله لكم قياما, support you, mean whatever the thing can stand with. What does that mean? The word qiyama in the verse, الذي جعل الله لكم قياما, meaning that the life cannot stand without that wealth. So, if we don't have wealth as a Muslim ummah, what's going to happen to our life? We are not going to stand on our feet. So Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us we need to look after our wealth, the ummah wealth, the ummah economy. So meaning that the wealth is what makes the ummah stand after believing Allah Azza wa Jal and the manners. So we believe in Allah, we have our right aqidah, we have our manners, then the wealth will help us to stand on our feet and be a strong ummah. That's why from the wisdoms and purposes of Islam is to protect the wealth. So there are 5 necessities in Islam. One of them is protecting the wealth. So we need to protect the wealth of ourselves, of the Muslim ummah. Alright, so we start with the first one, which is the commercial banks. What can we use the commercial banks for? In the Muslim countries, we might be able to have Islamic banks, but in the West, we only have commercial banks. What are the services that the commercial banks have that we are allowed to use as Muslims? Number one, Muslims can open in the commercial bank saving accounts. What about the credit accounts? Can we as Muslims open credit accounts in a commercial bank? The answer is no. We are not allowed to open credit accounts because the credit accounts, they have interest in them. If there is a necessity for some specific reason, then that needs to be a fatwa specific for that person, to allow that person based on his needs to open that credit account. And we all know the difference between the saving and the credit account. So that the saving account allows you only to use the money that you have in your account. Whereas the credit account allows you to use money over what you have and will give you a period of time where you can pay back that money to the bank. And if you do not pay back that money to the bank, then what will happen? The interest will be incurred on your account. Sometimes people will think about the Visa card, the credit card. The credit card is a credit account. It should not be used. It's not allowed actually to be used because it has the interest transaction inside it. Unless there is a specific need again that person need that Visa card or the credit card, then that needs to be discussed on a specific case by case and given fatwa for that person based on the needs. But if there are no needs, then these credit cards are not allowed because they have the interest transaction inside them. Because even when the person buys with a credit card, he buys and the money goes straight away to the customer, and they will not collect the money from the account of the person except after days. Whereas, as soon as I buy my debit card, as soon as I click buy, I will receive a message that this amount was removed from my account. So this is the debit, which is the saving account that we need to deal with. But the credit account, you might have a credit card, buy online something, it will not come out from your account except after days. And that's the credit. So the concept of the credit is not allowed. So that's number one for us in opening accounts, and we need to be careful with that in the commercial bank. Yeah.
So some of the commercial bank, they offer interest in saving account as well. If you, for example, if you keep your money for 1 month, if you maintain it to 2,000 or 3,000 or 10,000, then they will add some percentage of interest.
So with this, there are two things. Number one, if you are an individual where you have the choice of opening this type of account. Some people will come and say, well, I have lots of money. Why not putting it? And the interest that will come, I will not use it. I will use it for something beneficial, and I will not get reward for it. Well, if the person entered that transaction to allow interest to come to his account, he allowed interest transaction to be approved by him. That's number one. Number two, if the person is not an individual, but he has a company, he's forced to open certain types of accounts in order to buy and trade and do all of that, and then that actually brought him some interest outside his control, then that person, we say to him, that money, because for you to do the trading, you are forced to open that type of bank account, then that money that comes from an interest from the bank, you need to take it out. You will not be rewarded for that. Okay? So it's not a justification to say that, oh, instead of the bank taking the interest, I will take the interest and donate it. So meaning that you have approved to take interest on the money, whether you have donated it or you did not donate it. So that's number one, which is the type of bank account that we can open in the commercial banks. Number two, commercial banks can use for those who are dealing with trades, internal. They will ask them for commercial letter of credit, which is a bank-issued document that ensures supplier to a company gets paid for the goods and services it provides. Then that's a force. He has to issue that letter, and that's a relationship with the bank that issues that letter to assure the person who is having the goods that he will be paid. So they will block that money in the bank in order to pay that customer. A bank guarantee as well, we use that a lot in our day, whether it's an export, sometimes it's for example, you are renting, so this is a bank guarantee for the bond, for example, and like this premises, because it's a commercial premises, they ask for a bank guarantee. They did not ask for a bond. And that bank guarantee is certain amount of money that was put in the account in order for the owner, landlord, to make sure to access some money if the rent was not paid. Okay? So that's permissible to have under the bank transaction to guarantee payment of the amount to the landlord or any. So these are the three main transactions that we can have with a bank. And we have the last one, which is buying the houses under conditions. We have lots of dilemma and lots of question marks around buying houses from commercial banks. Is it permissible or not permissible? And the scholars, we have alhamdulillah, we have Majlis al-Ifta al-Europi, which is the European Council of Fatwa and Research. They have really well-sounded scholars around the world, and they are led by Dr. Yusuf al-Qaradawi, and now after him is Dr. Ali Quradaghi, which I'm taking, by the way, most of the material from Dr. Ali Quradaghi. They issued a fatwa to allow buying houses from the commercial banks under conditions. So they put 4 conditions for that. Condition number 1, that you are buying that for an accommodation. You are not buying it for trading. And as you all know, the people say it's the first house, isn't it? We hear a lot the Muslims say, oh, it's allowed for the first house. Well, if it's for the accommodation, condition number 1 is met. Second, for the normal accommodation, not a luxurious house. You have a house for 300,000. You have a house for 600,000. Both can actually meet your requirements because both are houses. But you went for the 6,000 house. You broke the requirements or the conditions. So you need to go with the minimum price of a house that can meet, because they issued that fatwa based on the needs of the people. Not an open fatwa. It's based on the needs. And so based on the needs does not mean that you are going to buy a fancy house for $1 million using the commercial bank. But you can buy a house that will cover you and your family. That's condition number 2. Condition number 3, you have no liquid money. Or sometimes you might have assets back in your country. So if you have assets back in your country, or other types of assets, like you have a farm and you want to buy a house, you cannot, because you have an asset that can cover that. Again, it's based on the need, not based on, oh, it's my first house. Okay, you bought with your money a farm, but now you want to buy a house for accommodation. Then you can sell the farm in order to buy. It's not about the house itself, but it's about the need again. These conditions were put for the need. And number 4, there is no Islamic bank. And it is arguable whether the Islamic finances that we have in Australia are Islamic finances or not. We are going to discuss that in details, inshallah. So the fatwa is only if the countries are with Muslim minorities. But if the Muslims are majorities, that fatwa does not apply. The reason why? Because when they are a majority, they can make change. They can make rules. So they do not have the right to take that fatwa. So with that, can someone in Adelaide or in Australia buy a house from a commercial bank if he feels that he meets the four requirements? Then he can take that fatwa. If he can meet that 4 conditions, he can actually take that fatwa and buy from the commercial bank.
You mentioned the asset. What if the asset is the only source of income? So if they have a farm, but the family earns from the farm, would that still mean to sell it?
This is the only source of income. Then this needs a specific fatwa for that person. So that person needs to sit down, explain all the ins and outs, and say the conditions, and based on that he will be given a fatwa to yes or no to buy, and take that fatwa to buy from the commercial bank. Now comes to the...
I have a question there.
Yes.
How about in terms of the assets, if you have like a house back home, which like you haven't declared to the government yet, and if you're going to sell that house, you need to prove where you get the money from to bring it back to Australia if you're going to use that money to buy a house here. So
This is again a specific fatwa for an individual case. So there are lots of questions that need to look. These are things that are very complicated. So even when I get some questions like this, I get them, I ask all the questions, and then I go back to the specialists. I speak to them, I say, here is the condition. They sometimes come back to me and say, ask this and this and this. And then they can issue the fatwa for that individual. But it's not straightforward. It's not for someone like me or an imam or anyone to give the fatwa about these complicated transactions. I refer, for example, for these to specific people who are scholars in finances, Islamic finances. So they have degrees and professors in Sharia and especially in fiqh, and not all fiqh, but the fiqh of the financial transactions. This is where I refer always when questions come like this. Now comes to the Islamic finances, which are, we have a couple of Islamic finance companies in Australia that are providing housing, for example. What are the bases that they are using, and can we use them or not? The basis, or what these Islamic finances do, it will depend on the license that they are carrying. So the Australian ASIC controls what a company can do and what a company cannot do, based on the license that they are having. So if that company has a license that allows them to do such things, they will do. So you have the company, and this is what happens when a person wants to go and buy a house from these Islamic finances in Australia. You have the company. That company actually allow for investments, first type of company, investors to put money. Some of the Islamic finances in Australia, they are from this type. So they collect money from the investors. Okay? Another type of company is that they have the investors who have money, and there is someone who wants to buy a house. So that Islamic company come and do transaction with that person and say to them, we are selling you. He will say, I want to buy that house. They will come and say, okay, we will sell you that house. But they don't have the money. What they do is, they liaise with the investors. And they come and they bring that money to here. And so they have a transaction between him, the company, and the person. Murabaha, transaction of ijara, any of these Islamic names. And they say that to the person, this is non-binding. This transaction that between us, you cannot take it to the court because it doesn't worth anything. And they will create a contract between the investors and the person, which is, you have to pay this amount, dollars, per month. If you are late, this percentage fees, and so on. And the yearly interest vary per year. So they will say to the person, every year we have to revisit the percentage that we will put on you. I'm speaking here about the Islamic finance that we have in Australia. And so, actually, what our Islamic finances are doing, they are just advising. They are not taking the investments. Because if you look at it, investments, it's hard to get money to cover the demand of buying houses by the Muslims. So that drove people to go to investors from outside the Muslim community. And so you have people taking money, investments from banks, from non-Muslim financial companies or investors, and from Muslim investors, which is few. The majority of the Muslims want to buy houses, they don't want to invest their money. That's why it made it hard on the Islamic finance companies to actually find investors. So as you can see, the transaction for anyone to buy a house, what will happen is the person will go to this company. This company is a mediator between the investors and the person. This company will create a transaction or a contract, Islamic contract, that is non-binding, has no value. And then the person will sign on a contract between him and the investors about the money that he will be given. That person will be given a paper to go, he will be given the money to go to buy the house. So pretty much like the commercial banks. Pretty much there is no difference. I'm speaking to you about the details of the transaction, what happens in the Islamic finances. I actually sat down and in this room, one of the big Islamic finance companies gave a presentation. I called him from one of the states. He gave me a presentation about the transaction and the details of the transaction. And I asked him a couple of questions and confirmed with him that it's actually not an Islamic transaction. But there is a fatwa. So all of these companies, they have fatwas from muftis here in Australia, muftis from outside, that this is a halal transaction. Okay? Does that make these transactions haram or halal? Well, there is a fatwa. I am not maybe in the knowledge level of those who gave the fatwa, so it will be left to the person himself to decide if he is comfortable to follow that fatwa, then he has a justification. If he is comfortable to go with the fatwa of buying from the commercial bank, then he has that justification. If he is not comfortable and he is not happy, then he needs to stay away. Okay? So this is actually what's happening with buying houses from banks versus buying houses from our Islamic financial companies versus buying houses by your own. Okay? Yes?
For the first case that you mentioned about, there are some companies that takes money from the investors, so they're actually not acting like middlemen, right? Is it the same arrangement that they have, that they would provide, like pay certain money a month? You have this late
The
fees.
problem with this, no, there's no one who does not put late fees, who does not put, they call it changeable interest rate.
Variable,
Yeah, per year. There is none, except they are forced to do that. Until now, as far as I know, none of our Islamic finances actually take funds, buy and sell directly from their own. Do you understand? Because there are two things here. For someone in Australia to receive investments, he need to have a license to manage funds. Okay? So that is coming to him, money coming to the company. And then for someone to actually sell houses, he needs to have another license, which is a property investment license. And then if he wants to sell these to the public outside, he needs to have another license to sell to the public. That complicated things in Australia. And there are lots of regulations about it. That's why it is almost non-existing in Australia. I can claim that no one is doing it. And I can claim that the majority of them are just advising rather than managing the funds and buying properties and selling properties. Okay?
So with the arrangement of like paying $1 per month and late fees, I understand that. I mean it's a reasonable arrangement, but the yearly interest for it looks riba to me because of the
Yeah, it's not
but
fixed.
Is it because of the variable arrangement, or what if you have like some commercial banks actually would have like they would set a fixed interest? Does that make it if it's a fixed interest?
As far as what I contacted the financial companies in Australia, it's variable.
But what if an Islamic finance would say that it's a fixed interest? Would that make it?
So that's one aspect of it, which is the fixed rate, because that is regulated by ASIC, which is the government body that dictates the rules and the transactions. So if the ASIC, based on the license of that Islamic finance company, the license does not support, then what happens is ASIC will dictate that you have to make in the contract. ASIC need to approve these contracts. So you want to say, I want to sell people houses and this is my contract. ASIC will say, no, you have to put variable interest. They will dictate. But if you have your license in a way that this is mine and I am going to sell directly to the customer, going to receive money from investors, develop, sell directly to the customer, it's going to be heavily regulated, but you can. But none has done it yet. Okay? That's number one. What else? Do you have any other questions in this?
There's another, someone told me about this with the commercial bank. So this guy, he bought a house for like $800,000. He had $800,000. He put that $800,000 in the account. It has a special name. It's your money, but you put it for the bank, and you don't take anything out. So
And you will be given.
Yeah, interest is zero.
Yeah.
But you are paying the loan amount you have taken from the bank for $800,000. But you can take that $800,000 from that account anytime. But if you take out the amount, the interest will be calculated. So you have.
So it's actually interest.
Yeah.
But he's not taking interest and he's not paying interest. So they are calculating it, that you are putting the money. So why is he, if he has the money, why is he putting the money in the bank from the first place?
I don't know. I mean, this is another
Why?
type of transaction, which is, I don't know if it's correct or not.
So it's not correct, of course. Why? Because he has taken 800 and gave 800.
Yeah.
So he is paying this, correct?
Offset account.
Okay. So because he is putting the 800 in the account, the bank says to him, I'm not going to charge interest. The loan that you have taken, you just pay that loan without interest. So you pay the 800,000, 800,000. But you need to keep the 800,000 with us, as long as you are paying. Until you finish, then you can take it. So what he's claiming is, look, I paid the house, I did not pay 1 cent interest, and here you go. This is what he's claiming, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, the contract that he signed states that I agree, if I pull that money from my account, I will pay interest. So we went back to square one. It's exactly like the interest-free buying from cars or any of these. Because you will have in that contract, if I don't pay within that period of time, I agree to pay interest, this amount, this percentage for this land, so on. So you are signing an interest contract. All right? Although some people will say, oh, he did not pay interest. So you look at it as it is. But you look at the contracts and the terms that you agreed on. You agreed to pay interest. All right? We stop here because the next one is a bit tricky. So we are going to have some time with it, inshallah. Anyone has any question?
Last question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, as Muslim community in here, so weren't we able to organize like someone to do that type of things for us, like buying the houses and selling it to the Muslim community? For example, you buy the house,
Make
you buy
dua.
it for 200,000, you sell it to the Muslim Ummah maybe for 220 or 250, it depends, you know?
So make dua for us. We are in that process.
Inshallah.
Make dua that Allah Azza wa Jal will help us, because it's a dangerous field. It's just a dangerous field. It's very deep. So we just need his support. Inshallah.
I think in that case there is no interest in there, right? In that case it's 100% halal.
It will be 100% halal. It will be heavily regulated. And the government will be on top of the heads of every single transaction. But it will be 100% halal. It's not impossible to do. But unfortunately, our Islamic financial guys, they are taking the easy way. They are not taking the hard way to provide us with a real 100% halal transaction. To be fair, some started properly.
Some started what?
Properly. Some started these transactions properly. But they ended up not continuing because it's heavily regulated. It requires lots of people just to stay behind the desk, just compliance with the government regulations. That's why they just went away from it. May Allah Azza wa Jal create what is beneficial for the Muslims here and everywhere, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.